Stop having sinking legs as you're swimming. So it's one of the most common stroke flaws that we see in athletes who've come to triathlon and want to become swimmers when they're already good cyclists or already good runners. And we can see in the video we've got on screen here at the moment that this athlete is struggling with the sinking legs down behind them, their chest up in the water, and then a downward direction going all the way down where the bottom's lower in the water and the feet, their knees, their legs are even lower under the water than that. And it's a real challenge for athletes who come to swimming later in life because we often can't feel what's happening in the water. We're often much fitter than our swim times are allowing us to see. And it's usually not fitness that's the problem. It's actually usually how we balance ourselves in the water, and it's how we move ourselves through the water and we use that fitness. And so I'm going to talk you through this today, and hopefully we can highlight a couple of issues going on with some swimming examples that will really, really help you as well. Okay, so first up, let's talk about what we would ideally like to see. In a swimmer who's moving nicely through the water, we'd see that the body's really flat and level. If we think of this being the head, we'd have the head, the shoulders, the waist, the legs, all in one nice straight line. The challenge that we have is with a lot of athletes who come from a cycling or running background, their head tends to be at the water level and their bottom tends to be a bit lower and their legs tend to be even lower still. And that gets exacerbated as people go to breathe if they're not very comfortable at breathing. If they lift their head to breathe, you'll see that only one thing can happen at the other end to compensate for it, and their legs will drop even more as they go to breathe as well. So it's tempting to think the fix for this is to learn to kick more strongly, and that will keep your legs up. And it might, to a certain extent, a little bit. But the big challenge tends not to be the athlete's kick, although sometimes that isn't very good as well. The big challenge tends to be that the body position in the water, their rotation in the water, and most importantly, how they're breathing, whether they're holding their breath or not, that's the biggest thing about this. So I'm going to put a good example up on the screen now for you. I want you to work on this idea of embedding what a perfect technique is going to look like. So first up, let's put this up on the screen for you. We've got a swimmer here demonstrating one-arm technique, but forget about that for the time being. What I want you to look at is how we've got this beautiful straight line with the head, the shoulders, the back, all in a nice straight line. There's no sinking legs happening with athlete here at all. And it's largely because we've got this great rotation happening down at the waist and we're breathing out continuously as we're moving along. So again, here, as the athlete moves past the camera a little bit, you're going to be able to see that the hips are nice and up at the water there. The hips are actually breaking the water on both sides as they come through, which is really unusual. This is a very good swimmer who swims close to 4 minutes for 400. And we'll see that the legs have got a nice relaxed flutter kick, but none of the propulsion, even though this athlete is only swimming with one arm, none of the propulsion is happening here, driven by the arms. We're going to see the athlete break out into full stroke at this point. And again, what we're going to see is, firstly, continually breathing out. Secondly, not lifting the head up to breathe, but turning slowly at the side to breathe so that one goggle's always up in the water. And you'll see this. Let me move this backwards and forwards very slightly for you here. Let's play this again. You'll see as he goes to breathe, there's still one goggle in the water there. So that means we've got this very streamlined position. You'll recognize this from all of the great swim videos you might have watched. We've got a really, really good position here. Now, if we go back a little bit, I want to highlight this section to you. As we push off the wall, you'll see that the key parts to our fixing the kick start at the front end. Because our athlete is exhaling continually, they don't have a huge chest full of air lifting the front of the body up, so they don't have the back end of their body sinking down to compensate. And that's the most important thing to help you fix your sinky legs. I'll show you a couple of drills you can do to help with this in a moment. But if you only take one thing away from this, that's what I want it to be today. This idea that the big problem with the legs is almost always caused by holding your breath at the front end. If you think of your lungs as two massive bags of air, if you inflate here, At the front of the stroke, as we talked before, if these big bags of air are here, it's natural that the front end is going to come up and the back end is going to go down. That's the big challenge for us. I've got an example of a swimmer to show you here on the screen. And what we'll see is we've got the classic sinky legs happening at the back of the stroke here. You can see waist isn't really breaking the water, legs, knees, calves way down underneath the water. And we can see that even without really needing an underwater camera. And we'll see that the challenge of this, or the flaw that's happening, is our athlete's holding the breath. There's no bubbles happening here at the front end of the stroke until just before he turns his head to breathe. All the air comes out, all the air goes in, meaning that for probably 8/10 of the stroke cycle, we've got huge bags of air here in the front, developed by cycling, running, big lung capacity, but our legs would have to work extraordinarily hard in order to keep themselves at the surface when counterbalancing two massive floaty bags of air at the front end of the stroke here. Okay, now then, the drill that we talked about that we're going to have up on the screen in order to help fix this is the 6-3-6 drill. We're going to do 3 strokes, 6 kicks with the body balanced on the side. So 1, 2, 3. Leave that lead arm extended. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're continually exhaling out underneath the water as we saw before. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, continually exhaling. And what we'll learn doing this is that how our body feels when it's on its side. You can see in the swimmer here, if I hit pause, we've got certainly a more than 45-degree angle. It's a beautiful example of how twisted the front of the torso of the swimmer needs to be. Got no crossover at the front of the stroke, but by twisting and practicing holding that position, you're really going to be able to learn to balance as if, imagine you've got a balloon underneath your arm in this area where the cursor is, and you're pressing down underneath the water onto that balloon. The pressing down of that feeling is what's going to help keep your legs up at the surface. So again, we'll see we rotate to one side, the other side, and then as our athlete leaves that arm extended, he's pushing down into his armpit, and that leads to the sensation of him then being able to keep those legs up by the surface. We'll watch this again from above because you'll see that there's at no point the athlete is flat in the water. We've got one shoulder down and one shoulder up all the time. And here as they turn, look, we're way beyond the 45-degree turn at that point. And we can see the legs at the back end of the stroke. Almost all of the athlete's swim trunks are out of the water. Legs are nice and up floating near the surface. And that's largely because the athlete is in one part turning themselves and pressing down in the armpit, and the other part of it is they're exhaling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you here what I want you to do. Instead of thinking of yourselves as flat in the water, and if you leave one arm out like this, you find yourself flat in the water, what we want you to think about is turning over and pressing this section down into the water. That sensation pressing down there is going to mean that you leverage the air in your lungs down. And you can see as I do that at one end, my feet are naturally going to follow up at the other end of the stroke cycle. Just like we talked before, if you can push down at the front, the back end of your stroke is going to come up as well and lift those feet up. If we go again and have a quick flick back, we look at our athlete who was swimming very flat in the water. What we've got here is all the way through the stroke cycle, we've got no air coming out. And so we end up with very sinky legs underneath the water. Again, if we could get that air being expelled a little bit sooner or a lot sooner, we'd find that those legs would stay much closer to the surface and our athlete would be much more streamlined, get much more speed for the same effort. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. I hope it's helped you. Go away and try the 6-3-6 drill. Rewind the video and watch it again if you need some tips on how to do that. But I really think it'll help you get that sensation of leaning down into your armpit on the water. And that will, in effect, leverage your feet up closer to the surface and help you maintain that nice streamlined position. All right. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the show. To wrap this up, here are some discount codes and deals for you. At precisionfuelandhydration.com, remember you can use the code OXYGEN24 for 15% off your first electrolyte and fuel order. Their stuff's awesome. Try it. I guarantee you won't be disappointed. You can use the free fuel and hydration planning tool as well over at precisionfuelandhydration.com, and you'll receive personalized strategy for your next race. The planner helps you understand your own carbohydrate, electrolyte, and fluid needs, so you can refine your strategies during training, and you can then deliver it on race day. And you can also book a free one-to-one video consultation with PFNH's athlete support team, and they'll be happy to help you nail your race nutrition plan, helping you perform at your best on race day. And also, if you're looking for help and advice with your triathlon training, please head over to teamoxygenaddict.com. I think we've got the most comprehensive triathlon coaching program for busy age groupers. Please check us out. There's a link in the show notes to book a call with us. We can have a chat about you, find out all about your background and what you want to achieve. And I'm really confident we can help you get where you want to be. Dead easy. Link in the show notes or under this video here. You can book straight to our calendar and we can have a chat and see how we can best help you out. So remember, links in the show notes so you don't have to remember them. Until next week, have a great, safe training and racing week. I'm Coach Rob Wilby, and you've been listening to the Oxygen Addict podcast.